The finger pressed down. Bruce's index finger found the soft hollow in Garrett Walsh's palm and sank into the nerve cluster beneath. 2 seconds, nothing more. Garrett's arm went dead. The numbness hit first, a terrible absence where muscle and strength had been, then lightning. White-hot pain exploded up his forearm, lanced through his elbow, burned into his shoulder. His hand spasmed open, fingers twitched uselessly. His smirk collapsed. The backyard had gone silent. 30 guests stood frozen, drinks halfway to mouths, conversations strangled mid-word. Even the music from the record player seemed quieter, as if the machine itself had paused to watch. Garrett yanked his arm back, cradling it against his chest. His face twisted, shock, then confusion, then something darker, realization. "What the hell did you do?" Bruce withdrew his hand, expression unchanged, calm, no triumph. "No anger, that's a nerve cluster," he said. "Doesn't matter how big you are, everyone has the same nervous system." The 6'4" bodyguard staggered back a step, 250 pounds of muscle and arrogance. Undone by a single finger, but how had it come to this? What madness had driven a drunk stranger to challenge Bruce Lee at his own party? 20 minutes earlier, everything had been different. 20 minutes earlier, charcoal smoke drifted through Bruce's backyard in thick, sweet curls. Laughter erupted near the fence where students traded stories. Music pulsed from a speaker wedged between potted plants. Bruce flipped burgers on the grill, spatula in hand, his movements unhurried. Linda passed through with a tray of drinks. 30 guests mingled under the California evening sky, warm air settling over skin like a blanket. The side gate creaked open. A man stepped through, uninvited, 6'4", 250 pounds, shoulders that blocked the porch light. Garrett Walsh moved with the sloppy confidence of someone who'd emptied half a bottle before arriving. His voice cut through the music. Martial arts, heads turned, total waste of time. He swayed, grinning. "You want to know what beats all that fancy footwork?" He slapped his own chest. Size, real muscle. Conversations died. Someone lowered the music volume. Ted Yamamoto, Bruce's senior student, stepped forward. "Hey man, this is a private party. You need to. I'm talking facts." Garrett's eyes swept the crowd, glassy and eager. "All that mystical kung fu stuff, useless against someone who can just pick you up." His gaze locked onto Bruce. The spatula in Bruce's hand stopped moving, and what happened in the next 3 seconds would determine whether this night ended peacefully, or didn't end peacefully at all. Garrett's eyes narrowed on Bruce's frame. "You're what, 140? His voice carried across the suddenly quiet yard. "I could just pick you up and throw you." The spatula scraped against the grill, metal on metal. Burgers still sizzled, smoke curling upward into the evening air, but nobody watched the food anymore. Ted Yamamoto's hands closed into fists. 3 other students shifted forward, shoulders tight. The circle around Garrett contracted by inches. Bruce flipped a burger, calm, precise. "You're drunk." His voice held no edge, no challenge. "Let's talk when you're sober." Garrett heard something else entirely. His chest swelled. Drunk, he stepped closer, the smell of whiskey cutting through the charcoal smoke. "You're scared, I see it. All this mystical martial arts nonsense." He waved his massive hand, nearly hitting a student beside him. "Means nothing when a real man gets hold of you." Bruce set down the spatula, slowly. The movement drew every eye in the backyard. "You don't want this conversation," Bruce said quietly. Garrett's laugh was too loud, too sharp. "Then show me I'm wrong, right here, right now." The standoff crystallized into something heavier than words, and what Bruce did next would either diffuse 30 witnesses or ignite something he couldn't control. Garrett spread his arms wide, chest forward. "Hit me as hard as you can. I'll show you size absorbs everything." The smoke from the grill thickened. Nobody coughed. Ted Yamamoto stepped forward first, then 3 others, fists clenched. Shoulders squared. Few could understand the depth of loyalty these students felt. Watching their teacher disrespected in his own home burned worse than any physical blow. Bruce raised one hand, palm flat. They froze mid-stride. "I'm not going to hit a guest at my own party." Garrett's laugh came out wet, slurred. All talk. He jabbed a thick finger toward Bruce. Movie fighting, fake choreography. He swayed, caught himself. Nothing real about you. The music from the house seemed distant now, like sound traveling through water. 30 pairs of eyes locked on the space between the two men. The heat radiating from the grill couldn't match the tension crackling in the cooling evening air. Bruce wiped his hands on a towel, slowly, deliberately. Okay. The single word dropped like a stone into still water. I'll demonstrate something, but when I'm done, Bruce's voice stayed level, almost soft. You leave immediately. Bruce set the spatula down on the grill's edge. The metal clinked softly against cast iron. Okay, he said, I'll demonstrate something. His voice carried no anger, no pride, just simple statement. But when I'm done, you leave immediately. Don't come back. The air shifted. Something in his tone made it impossible to look away. Agreed. Garrett swayed slightly, his massive frame tilting left then correcting. That confident smirk hadn't faded. He gestured broadly, almost losing balance. Yeah, sure, whatever you say. Behind him, someone reached for the radio. The music died. Conversations dropped mid-sentence. 30 guests turned, forming a loose semicircle around the two men. The smell of grilling meat still hung in the evening air, but no one seemed to notice anymore. Ted Yamamoto's jaw clenched. His hands remained at his sides, but his knuckles had gone white. Linda stood near the back door, arms crossed, watching her husband's face. Garrett rolled his shoulders, loosening up like a boxer before a sparring match. 250 pounds of muscle and alcohol-fueled certainty. Bruce stood perfectly still. The silence stretched. This was no longer a party. It was a lesson, and someone was about to learn exactly what that meant. Bruce's voice cut through the silence. Hold out your hand, palm up. Garrett extended his arm. The hand was massive, thick fingers splayed wide, calluses yellowed across the palm, a hand built for crushing. He grinned, confident, swaying slightly on his feet. 30 pairs of eyes tracked the movement. Don't move, just keep it right there. The grin widened. Garrett's hand hung in the air between them, steady despite the alcohol warming his blood. Bruce stepped closer. His right hand rose slowly, deliberately, one finger extended, index finger, nothing more. It hovered 2 inches above Garrett's palm. The charcoal smoke had faded, but sweat now peppered Garrett's forehead. Not from fear, from the California heat and whiskey coursing through his veins. Bruce's finger didn't waver, didn't tremble. I'm going to show you that technique beats size. Someone in the crowd inhaled sharply. Ted's jaw clenched. Linda stood motionless near the back door, arms crossed, watching her husband position himself with surgical calm. Bruce's eyes locked on Garrett's. Ready, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Garrett opened his mouth to answer, but Bruce's finger had already begun its descent toward the center of that open palm, moving with the precision of a scalpel finding flesh. Contact. Bruce's index finger pressed into the center of Garrett's palm and pushed forward. The effect was immediate, absolute. Garrett's massive hand convulsed, fingers splayed wide as if shocked by invisible voltage. His entire arm, 250 pounds of muscle and bone, went limp, dead weight. The sensation raced up through his bicep, a white-hot wire of electricity that slammed into his shoulder socket. His face twisted, mouth open, eyes wide. He yanked his arm back, cradling it against his chest like a wounded animal. The hand twitched, unresponsive, numb and screaming at the same time. His voice cracked. What the hell did you do? 30 witnesses stood frozen. Some had moved closer without realizing it. Ted's fists were still clenched. Linda remained by the doorway, her expression unreadable. Bruce lowered his hand. His voice was calm, measured. That's a nerve cluster. Doesn't matter how big you are. Garrett stared at his useless arm, flexing fingers that barely moved. The alcohol fog had evaporated. Reality pressed in sharp and cold. Few could understand what he felt in that moment, not just pain, but the sudden collapse of everything he believed about power. But what Bruce said next would determine whether humiliation became transformation. Garrett cradled his arm against his chest. The The fingers twitched uselessly, spasming without command. He stared down at his own hand as though it belonged to someone else. Bruce's voice cut through the silence, calm as still water. "That's a nerve cluster." The words landed soft but absolute. "Doesn't matter how big you are, everyone has the same nervous system." Garrett looked up. The smirk was gone. His face had drained to ash gray, sweat beading along his temples. Bruce stepped back, hands loose at his sides. "I could have done much worse, but you're drunk and this is my home." The crowd remained frozen, 30 witnesses holding their breath. "Now please leave." Garrett opened his mouth, closed it. The weight of his own arrogance pressed down on his shoulders like concrete. He nodded once, slow and heavy. I'm sorry." His voice came out hoarse, broken. He turned, cradling the dead arm, and walked through the silent crowd. No one moved to stop him. The gate creaked open, closed. Linda exhaled. Ted's fists slowly unclenched. Bruce returned to the grill, flipping a burger that had started to char. But as the party tried to resume, none of them noticed. Garrett had stopped just beyond the fence, staring back at the house with something new burning in his eyes. Morning light cut sharp across the driveway. Garrett stood at Bruce's front door, clean-shaven, eyes clear, his shoulders hunched forward slightly, an unfamiliar posture for a man who'd built his career on presence. He held a bottle of wine between both hands. The label caught the sun, something French, expensive, the kind of apology that cost $300. Bruce opened the door, said nothing. "I was drunk." Garrett's voice came low, steady. "And stupid and disrespectful, in your own home." The silence stretched. Few could understand the weight of standing before someone who'd dismantled not just your body, but every assumption you'd built a life upon. "I'm sorry." Garrett extended the bottle. His hand didn't shake, but his jaw tightened. "Can you teach me?" Bruce studied him. The question hung between them like smoke. "Come back in 6 months." Garrett blinked. "Stay sober," Bruce continued. "We'll talk then." The door began to close. Garrett's fingers whitened around the bottle neck, his breath catching somewhere between hope and panic. 6 months. 182 days between this moment and the possibility of redemption. Whether he'd return was one question. What Bruce would demand if he did was another entirely. 6 months later, Garrett stood at Bruce's door again. No wine this time, just calloused hands and clear eyes. Bruce opened the door, studied him for 3 long seconds, then nodded once. The training floor smelled like sweat and liniment. Garrett learned to fall, to breathe, to move without thought. His knuckles split against the heavy bag, healed, split again. Bruce corrected every stance, every strike with surgical precision. "You're still using strength," Bruce said one afternoon, tapping Garrett's rigid shoulder. "Feel the leverage, let physics do the work." 2 years passed like water wearing stone. Garrett became smaller somehow, though his frame stayed massive. He bowed when entering the training space, listened more than he spoke. When younger bodyguards bragged about intimidation tactics at security conferences, he'd shake his head. "Intimidation without skill is just bullying," he told them. "Real protection comes from control, not domination." One asked how he'd learned that. Garrett smiled, remembering a backyard party and a single finger that rewired his entire understanding of power. "Bruce gave me a lesson. Not a beating, that's teaching." He still trained 3 mornings a week, still felt Bruce's corrections in his muscle memory. The drunk, arrogant man who'd crashed that party no longer existed. Something better had taken his place.